Welcome to another edition of Winemaker Minutes. Today we're talking about pressing, which is this beautiful instrument behind me, the EuroPress 3000, we'll call it. So it varies if you're making white wine versus a red wine. With white grapes, when they come in from the vineyard, sometimes we'll sort them depending if there's mold or anything, but in general, the entire cluster goes into the press, and we press the juice out, goes to a settling tank, and then we either put it into a stainless steel tank, the one that's next to me, or into a barrel. And that depends on the style of wine you're making. So you can have a barrel fermented white wine or a stainless fermented white wine. If you go stainless, you're going to have more steely, minerally characteristics, more fresh fruit. If you go with that barrel fermented white wine, you're going to have a little more creaminess, richness, texture, a little less fruit. So essentially, those are, that's the method for white grapes. It's pretty straightforward. So red grapes is a whole different ballgame. So as you know, red grapes get fermented with the skins in a fermentation bin. So at the end of fermentation, we're going to take the bin, lift it up with the forklift, and we're going to drain the free run, which is the free run juice. Well, at this point, it's wine. We're going to drain the free run wine into a barrel. And then we're going to take all the skins that are left over, and we're going to dump it into the top. It's going to go in the press, and we're going to use this, it's called a bladder press. And essentially, on the very top of this press, it rotates around, and on the top is a bladder. And once we start the press cycle, the bladder fills with air and gently squeezes down on the grapes. All the juice in the wine comes out through these slits. It's collected in this pan, which we then use a pump to fill up and put into your barrel. So when we decide when to press your wine, we're going to be looking at the bricks, the amount of sugar that's left in the wine. Most wines are pressed in the -1 to 1 bricks, which is basically a measure of how much sugar is remaining from the fermentation. The yeast are converting that sugar to alcohol, and that's the primary fermentation. So as that's happening, we're going to taste the fermentation and decide when we want to press. And now, there's another whole question of how hard do you press? So once we dump the grapes into the press, we actually have a cycle where it ramps up slowly. It'll go 0.2 bars, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, and up to 1 bar. It's pretty common. And what we're going to do is as each, say, press fraction comes out of the press into the pan, we're going to taste those individually and see how much tannin's there. Is it too aggressive? Is it too tannic? Or maybe it tastes really good and you're like, let's keep pressing. And that always varies individually, as in clients' desires, but also every vineyard is different. So that's something I can't tell you how hard we're going to press until we're actually doing it. So initially, when we're deciding how hard to press, we're going to drain the free run out of the barrel, out of the bin, into the barrel. We're going to taste that free run juice. What we like to do is actually taste all the press fractions separately so you can determine what suits your palate. But in general, as you press, the first press fraction is going to have a little more sugar in it because there's a lot of whole berries that are still in your fermentation that you're going to break open as the pressure from the bladder squeezes down and bursts those berries open. So there's still some sugar in there that hasn't been fermented. So the second press fraction might taste a little sweeter. And also, you might end up liking that a little bit more. It's pretty common. I think adding press fractions to your wine on top of the free run gives the wine more complexity, more structure in the long run. And it's a very important part of the whole process. So to wrap it up, the decision of when to press is pretty crucial to the final style of wine you want to make. If you really do want a more aggressive tannic wine that's going to age well, you're going to want to let that wine interact with the skins and the seeds of the grapes as long as possible. And if you want a wine that's a little more elegant, with a little more reserved nature, you might want to press a little sweet, and that's going to give those tannins a slightly more refined state, maybe a little less edgy. But it really does tie into the vineyard, and every year is different. So we can't always say what's going to be the best in any given year and for what vineyard. So it's always fun for you to come in and participate and help make those decisions with us.